welcome to Novel Ideas. This is a podcast where we talk with political pros about creating a new media playbook for Democrats. We're talking with our industry's best and brightest to amplify the new strategies that we need to win, because we know we ain't going to win the future with the playbooks of the past. I'm Rachel Campbell. I'm an industry veteran of politics and digital media. I'm CEO at Novel Messaging, and I really love talking with smart people and turning hot takes into action. On today's episode, we're talking with Gabriella Zutrau. Gabbi is a digital strategy advisor to organizations like Move On and the Zohran Mamdani campaign. Gabbi specializes in organic social media and guides organizations on how to use digital strategy to mobilize supporters, shape narratives, and win change. Her work spans comprehensive digital strategy and creator engagement to email programs and guidance on implementing emerging tools like chatbots. We're going to talk about that. She's an expert in using digital platforms as engines to maximize engagement and growth. In another lane, which we're also going to talk about, Gabbi is also a content creator in the pet niche, where she runs accounts with hundreds of thousands of followers for her dog, Edna the Runt. And Edna might make a guest appearance here. So welcome, Gabbi, and maybe even Edna. Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for having us. Edna is here. She's always
Yes! Off to a great start. Hi, doll. Looking great, per usual. Okay, thanks so much for doing this. We've been talking about many things one-on-one, on text, on email for a while now, and I'm actually really excited to have this conversation. It's one that is needed. But before we dig in, so many things to ask you about. But Gabbi, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first? Can you talk to us about how you come to this work, why you do it, what keeps you in it? Like, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, I first started kind of doing organizing work in college, doing like climate justice organizing, but that was over a decade ago. And then when I moved to New York, I began doing community organizing on the ground, mostly around police accountability and sanctuary city stuff. But that was also 2016.
A different time.
A really different time, but also a time at which everyone was calling on anyone who did any kind of like movement work to be in the streets every day. And I was like, actually, guys, I'm physically disabled, so I can't do this right now without being really, really, really tired and pain. So that's when I really started gravitating more towards comms and the digital side of stuff I could contribute, but not have to leave my house to do. And yeah, that's kind of where it all began. But I've been like a full-time freelance, independent, like digital consultant, digital strategy advisor for 5 or 6 years, and I was always doing it on the side, freelance before then. I work with all kinds of clients. Move On and the Mamdani campaign are two that you named, but yeah. I was recently asked this question of what makes you optimistic about the future of the progressive movement.
Ooh.
And my answer was like, I'm not. The reason I do this isn't because I'm optimistic we're gonna win. It's because I hope we still can. And I think there's a really big difference between feeling optimistic. I think optimistic is probably one of the last words I would ever use to describe myself. I feel deeply pessimistic and afraid, and I see fascism kind of coming at us really fast, and we're literally already here. It's like not just a slippery slope; we are sliding down. So yeah, I guess I keep doing this work because I have hope that we can turn it around and that will win.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a lot of reason to believe that your tools and your skills are going to be very helpful and needed in that fight. You've been making a lot of specific contributions to some major wins lately. You know, I just want to talk briefly about your work with ManyChat, because I think it's how I first got to know you. I think that you posted on LinkedIn maybe right after Mamdani won the primary, and it went viral in our little pocket. And I think it's such an interesting example, especially in this story that you just shared about like starting as an organizer and then figuring out how do I do this work with the tools on the internet. And I just want to spend 1 minute talking about your work with ManyChat because I think it's such a great example of how you've brought that to life. So can you tell us what it is, how you use it, what it can do for people, and then we'll zoom out. But I just want to spend 1 minute there.
Sure. ManyChat is, well, it's many things, but it's primarily a social media chat bot that, like, if you've ever seen the lifestyle influencers being like, comment Pilates and I'll send you my Pilates ebook so you can have shredded abs by summer. If you've ever seen a caption like that, that is ManyChat that is taking your comment that says Pilates, reading it, and then automatically sending you the ebook. And I noticed lifestyle influencers kind of starting to use this 3-ish years ago, and I started pitching it to my longtime client Move On, who's always down for an experiment, and I was like, "Guys, I think this might be, like, a very powerful digital organizing tool." I started an account for my dog, poked around, and was like, "No, this is definitely a really powerful organizing tool." So, kept pitching Move On, and they eventually were like, "Go for it, green light, start to experiment." So we started experimenting using it for getting their Instagram followers off of Instagram and onto their owned lists. And again, that was like 2 years ago. And then
Wow.
in the spring, I hit up the Mamdani campaign, and basically it was like the moment that I saw Zohran's video of him confronting Tom Homan, Trump's border czar in Albany. Um, After the illegal abduction of Mahmoud Khalil, I was like, "Oh my god." Within the first hour, I was like, "Oh my god, this video is about to blow up and their account is about to see a huge, huge uptick in followers and engagement." So I reached out to them and was like, "I know that the question you guys are asking yourself is, how do we get this online energy to make a difference for us? Like, how do we not just end up with a really big Instagram account at the end of a campaign, but actually use it to win?" And so I pitched them ManyChat as a way that they could kind of harness that online energy to get people onto their own lists, to get people into the streets, canvassing, calling people, voting. And they're like, "Let's go." And I set it up for them. And yeah, it ended up over the course of the primary, it sent over 77,000 automated messages and generated over 21,000 click throughs from those messages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exciting. That and this has been a problem that's been plaguing people, and this is, we'll get into this too, but there's lots of reasons why people sort of don't value what happens on social media, and one of the arguments against it is often like, oh, armchair quarterbacks, keyboard warriors, people who just, sit at home and they're not actually going to do anything. And what matters is door knocks and phone calls, and we got to get, metrics. And so it's just so beautiful because it helps close that gap and pull people offline, pull people from online to offline. And it creates metrics of its own that you can just rattle off. And, we know Democrats love a metric. So, um, well, thanks for sharing. I think I just wanted to make sure for anyone who listens to this that they check that out. I think you're on the front end of something that everybody should be thinking about and putting in place for 2026. So everybody go check that out and put it into your programs. Okay, but zooming out, we like to ask all of our guests, and I'm very excited to ask you. Okay, Democrats are doing a lot of things wrong at the moment, but we like to ask our guests sort of what's one problem or what's one issue that you're really focused on or that you think more people should pay attention to or that you want to talk about here.
Okay. I have a very clear answer to this, which is basically just the vast criminal underinvestment in organic social media that has been going on forever. And I am afraid will continue to go on through the midterms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, we have just seen the Dems, like, especially over the past couple of months, we've seen sort of a shift happen where people can no longer deny the unbelievable importance and power of great organic social media, but also like a real hesitancy to invest in it appropriately. And investing in it appropriately is a lot of money,
Mhm.
usually,
Mhm.
unless you get really lucky. Um, and our campaigns just kind of still expect organic social media to be cheap, to be a lot cheaper than it is to run a great program. And there are like a billion reasons for this, but we can get into them.
Yeah, so let's even zoom out and, like, level set. When we talk about organic social, let's, like, actually unpack what that means. What does a good organic social media program look like in your mind, and what are the resources that go into it to make it happen?
Yeah, such a good question. So just to make the distinction for the audience, people probably know this, but there's like organic social media and paid. And paid is where you put money behind something, whereas organic is when you're just producing content and working with the algorithms to basically make your content live its best life, reach as many people as possible, and get your message out. It's great for it's a brand play, it's a narrative play, it's a reach play, and ultimately, if you do it right, you can convert those people from your social audience into your, like, owned email list, into your donors, into your volunteers. Um, but yeah, that's the distinction, and what makes a great social operation in politics and advocacy is sometimes different than what it looks like on, like, the corporate side, but it's not necessarily as different as our people would like to think. Um, it it the core of it is that you need to have a real culture of experimentation and be willing to try a bunch of things over a long period of time to figure out what works for your audience. What do people want to see? What's the audience you're even building? Um,
Mm.
and beyond that, like the main thing I'd say that we are messing up, aside from having this really, really intense risk aversion, is that we're not investing in organic social media year round. And it's like
Mm.
a beast that really requires constant maintenance to thrive. Probably more than any other arm of a campaign, you need to be constantly feeding organic social media to like make sure that you're staying out algorithmically relevant to your followers and continuing to grow. So it's not just one thing. It's like this culture of experimentation and maintenance, basically.
And maintenance and regular feeding of the beast.
And one more thing is that we're so bad at this because campaigns, tend to function and get funded in cycles, and we oftentimes treat our organic social uh, more like it's like an ads program where we
Right.
fund it a ton towards the end, right around election day, and that so does not work for organic social because the algorithms are really like put a lot of value on engagement over time. Um, and if you're just throwing resources at your organic social operation, like in September, October, November, you are not going to reach the people you want to reach.
Right.
Whereas if you invest in it over like 8 months, you can build an audience and reach the
Right.
people you need to.
Right. And I think the other piece about the investment, so everything you're saying, I just want to call out that everything that you're saying goes into making a good organic social media program is kind of exactly opposite of the zeitgeist of how most Democratic campaigns are really like taught to function, which is do nothing, keep your powder dry, spend as little as possible till the end, then just go and throw everything you can, max capacity, and just throw it all out there. So there's that piece of it. The other piece that we're taught is, like you're saying, risk aversion. It's also like stick to the script, like message discipline. Like I was even taught, like when I was trained as a little baby organizer back in 2009. um, I was even taught, like, act actively. If people are selling you or telling you to try new or different things, they're selling you snake oil. We know what works, the same thing works. We need to do the same thing and, like, actively avoid any, like, new or experimentation because that's dangerous and bad. So, we're taught to not try new things. We're taught to do nothing and stay quiet and do as little as possible until the end when we do everything. And those are all just like exactly opposite to running good social media. There's probably 6 other things we could call out, but those are 2 big ones.
The world
So
has changed.
the world has changed. And I want to talk about the investment piece too, because I think you're so smart about how you talk about this as an investment and you talk about this as infrastructure. And, you know, what does what is your impression of how most either candidate campaigns or progressive organizations, how are they currently resourcing from a staffing perspective or from a budget perspective? What does that look like for social media? And what do you think, like, what does it look like when it works well? And what might surprise people about it?
Okay. So if you think about some of the most successful digital projects of the last couple of years, you might think about Zohran, you might think about Kamala HQ, Gavin Newsom's weird tweets, or outside of politics, Duolingo. And what all of those projects had in common was a a culture of experimentation and like not a super high level of risk aversion, and B, they were able to hand the reins to the people best positioned to do that experimentation online that we need to win. Um, and that is so important. But what ends up happening, strangely, is that usually in these campaign spaces, we are just not even seeing necessarily a dedicated staffer who is meant to just work on organic social, or even who's meant to just work on digital. It ends up being this thing that's tacked on to the end of a few different people's jobs. That's more like at the municipal smaller campaign level.
Is
And
it? Is it?
well, I don't know. Is it like I would hope that our biggest, most important campaigns have like come around to like treating social media expertise as like a real lane. But you tell me. I mean, you're working on a lot more campaigns than I am.
I don't think culturally this is the norm yet. I really don't. Like I am and maybe like I could be wrong. There's probably the places that I do think are resourcing it better are like big Senate or gubernatorial campaigns. I have noticed this is all anecdotal, but I have seen a couple job postings from digital directors on some of these kinds of races who are hiring a deputy to oversee like digital fundraising and digital organizing, like more of like the data-y kind of stuff, and then a separate deputy to oversee content. And I think that, and I don't know what staffing structures look like underneath either of those. I don't know if those teams, if those like sort of 2 deputies are getting equal staff and budget and resources there, but that was one anecdotal thing I saw where I was like, "Oh, some people are maybe getting it, that, like, this is a whole different type of person with a whole different skill set, and it's a job," right?
It's
Like,
such a different skill set. But we get stuck in this very strange, like self-reinforcing cycle of people not understanding like a how valuable organic social is. Like people really just fully not understanding candidates and campaign manager, the people making these budget decisions are not understanding how to measure organic social or what it's actually for, and that it's not like an email fundraising retainer where you're going to send out your first few emails and get a ton of money back. It's a long-term investment where you're building a brand and you have a huge asset at the end that you can continue to build off of. But so they don't get that. And then they don't understand how important it is. So they end up either tacking the responsibilities onto the end of someone else's job or hiring someone very, very junior to do all this work. When in fact, like, this is a job that needs to be done by someone ideally with a few years of work experience under their belts, because it is really high risk. Like the feeling that we all have that, oh, social media is scary and we don't want to mess up, that's real. Like it's very public facing. And so like you kind of need somebody in that position who knows how to deal with that level of risk, who knows how to have a standard operating procedure and a sign off process that will like give the principal enough insight into what's going on, but not overwhelm them with approvals.
Yep.
You need all these skills. And we keep on like not to say anything bad about like junior social people. Like some of them are amazing. Some of them are way better than people who've been doing it for 10 years
Yeah.
for real.
For real.
But there's this culture of wanting this to be really, really cheap, to wanting to pay $2,000 to $5,000 for a staffer to do this, which then like, and I think that the reason for this, or at least one of the reasons, is that social media has historically been a pink collar job, right?
Woo,
Like
say it.
thought of as something that only young people, young women do. It's like because oftentimes young people are the ones who are closest to the internet, right? Like that's true, but it's not always true. Like I'm 31, like and I'm close to the internet. But so because people have to be close to the internet to be good at this job, it's thought of as something only young people should do, and like only women are doing, so only like college age women should be in a position to do, which is just like a demographic that doesn't get paid a lot
Yep.
necessarily.
Yep. Or given a lot of authority.
Yeah, because and people are just it's stuck in this stasis of just being thought of as really an unserious position. And it again is this self-reinforcing cycle of like you put junior people in that position, so then the risk is a lot higher.
Yeah.
And then you feel like you have to manage them a lot and you don't give them a lot of power to make any decisions. So
Yeah.
then they're not even able to take the reins and
Right.
like cook.
Right.
Um
Right. Right.
and so it does end up being pretty like, sometimes it ends up not being good because you've put someone who's really junior there, who doesn't have a lot of authority, and who's, like, burning out because 'cause they're getting paid really badly.
Right. Well, and like in most other teams or departments or areas of a campaign, it's really not uncommon for there to be not only multiple layers of experience within the team, but then there's also a very common practice of you have in-house staff and then you have outside consultants who are there to advise or take, bigger pieces or, pull in newer tactics or technologies or to pull in best practices and sort of honestly to sort of be that a lot of times anyway, consultants are there to be that outside like judge of taste and like that judgment call, like, to advise on those, on the risks, right? To advise on that. Um, and for digital, when people say, oh, we're hiring digital, they actually always mean digital fundraising is what they mean. And this is like an area, that we're pushing on right now where I think more campaigns, it's wild to me that more campaigns don't um, hire digital strategy or social media strategy consulting to advise on this giant platform and megaphone that they're holding and using or could be using or should be using all day, every day. Like you're talking to tens of thousands of people or have the potential to be talking to tens of thousands of people every day with strategic comms and messaging. And to your point, you're comfortable not doing it at all or doing it and putting it in the hands of a junior inexperienced person. And it's hard to get people to understand why it's a worthy investment to bring in more experienced strategists to advise, just to advise. Like people are like, oh, the only money they want to spend is if you're going to pump out, like 30 tweets a day or whatever. Like, and they want to pay like $2,000 a month for like high volume product. Anyway, I'm losing the thread. The point I'm trying to say This is getting a little too specific here, but we're all a little triggered. I think in an ideal world, and even just saying this is gonna sound crazy to most people, but in an ideal world, there is a team of in-house people where there's, like, a leader who's just thinking about organic social, who's just thinking about the now 7 major platforms we need to be producing content for, and 7 different platforms where there are different communities we need to be managing and listening to and engaging with. There's a senior strategist who runs that team. There's copywriting, there's video production, there's graphic design, there's social listening, there's data and analytics and reporting and analysis. And then there's also outside consultants who are advising, shaping, tossing ideas on the pile. I don't think that that's crazy in a world where social media is the primary news source for most voters now. As of this summer, like the most recent data I've seen, more people are getting their news and their political information from social media than from traditional news. But we're still hiring multi-person comms teams and outside comms consultants, but we won't do it for social. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, people spend 10 hours a day looking at their phone, and we're just
Woo!
underinvest in that. Like, that's a weird choice. But I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is where we're investing instead. If you look at what Dems spent in 2024 to lose a presidential election on ads,
Yeah.
is way more than what the GOP spent on ads. But what the GOP was doing was dominating in organic online spaces. They were dominating on organic social. They were dominating on new media, going on podcasts and the like. And they were just racking up impressions every day doing that when we're spending $1 billion+ on ads. And so, like, why is that happening? Right?
Yeah.
Like, just to then lose
Yeah.
that? Like, why that's happening is what you were saying earlier, which is that the same guys who were saying, let's not experiment, let's not change up the playbook back in 2008, 2012, are the same guys who still have jobs in this industry.
Yeah.
And like, they are buddies with the candidates and elected officials whose campaigns they're working on. So like, you know, basically they've been taking commission on these ad spends for 30 years, and they have not to say that ads are not important, by the way, like ads
Yeah.
are important,
Yeah.
but they have no financial incentive to push for this shift to focusing more on organic social media.
Right.
And when we clearly need to, when
Right.
there's $1 billion going into ads and we are still losing elections, and we're just not investing in organic social because like we're not sure what the ROI is. It's like,
Right.
what's
Right.
the ROI on ads when you're losing the election?
Right.
We
Right.
never question whether to spend on ads. We never question whether to spend on an email fundraising retainer, right?
Right. 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 The ROI question comes up all the time. It's the other thing it reminds me of is this is also, why there's underinvestment and a slowness to adopt content creator partnerships, and, it's a piece that I'm interested to hear your take on because you are a content creator, and so, you've already mentioned that, and you've mentioned this to me before, that you have an opportunity to experiment and try things, and actually, like, you are in the engine room producing, running a program, like, leading, a page and thinking about organic social in an apolitical context, and then you have the ability to take your learnings and bring that back into politics. And I'm just really eager when we're framing all of this in terms of lack of investment, lack of infrastructure. What are you seeing from, that content creator lens too? How does that play into your view on organic social?
Oh my God. Okay. So, yes, it's true. I'm a content creator. I pretend to be a dog on the internet. And my dog Edna does occasionally get political, but for the most part, why this is relevant is I do use her pages as a lab where I experiment with new tools and tactics I'm interested in before I try them with my clients. So that is where I'm coming at this from. I'm also coming at this from the perspective of someone who has like planned creator engagement programs for organizations. Um, and the third place I'm coming at this from is that I just have a lot of friends in the political content creator space and just like in the creator space that is not necessarily immediately political. Um, and what's so funny and not funny is that last year, a lot of my creator friends made 75-80% of their salary, of their income for the year in October
Mm.
because campaigns were like, it's time to place our ads with the creators. And it's like, no, guys, like that's so silly because when you are just paying content creators in October and November to push out your message, it's like, not only is it unbelievable from an authenticity standpoint, it is hilariously bad practice for feeds that are algorithm based.
Yeah.
Because, because like when someone's only commenting on abortion rights one time in October of an election year, their audience is not used to hearing about it from them, so they're going to scroll past. Their audience is not going to find it authentic because like it feels like they've only commented on it once. And like because it's not relevant, it's not like a constant and regular part of their content strategy, it is not going to have the same algorithmic relevance placed on it as their normal content. Whereas if you do like an ambassador program that starts 6 to 8 months before, people are going to be putting that content into their feeds a bunch of times over a long period of time. Their audiences are going to start to be developed around them and like expect that kind of content from them. So it like will rank as more relevant in the algorithm, but also it will just perform better and feel more authentic to the
Yeah.
audience. So like this is like a really bad practice from a like milking your content for all it's worth perspective, like to just like blast the airwaves in October, um because like there's so much competition for feed
Yeah.
space during
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to break through and your content's not going to go as far as it could go. And then that's just one side of it. The other side of it is that this is really bad for the creator economy. Like this is very, very bad for our whole progressive new media ecosystem because it means a lifestyle, like a life for creators where they're just getting like blasted in October with money and content requests and they like have so much work to do and can't sustain it, or like would have a harder time sustaining themselves otherwise. So it's just like it's a lose 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 to think about creator work and engaging with new media in the same way that we've always thought about ads or other stuff that happens in that hockey stick period at the end of an election cycle.
Well, and again, it just is so reflective of this really old, out of date, broken thinking that it's okay to like that we only need to message till the end. Like I heard somebody say this recently and it really made my brain explode. Like, well, it's not time to talk to voters yet, is something I heard someone say. And we live in an always on media ecosystem. And the right wing infrastructure is talking to voters all day, every day. And like, I don't think it's a coincidence that, um, we are losing. Trump is obviously very unpopular, and a lot of what he's doing is unpopular, but we are still losing these like tactical news cycle battles because we don't offer our frame. I'm talking in very broad strokes here. Of course, there are some people who are doing this, but generally speaking, the mindset of most people in the party is that like we don't talk to voters on organic social media. We only talk to voters right before an election when it's time. And that until we drop that and shift into the mindset that is better suited to the modern media ecosystem, that we are in an always on media environment. There are battles taking place all day, every day. The algorithm is going to serve people content. We have to supply it with content with our frame, or their entire feed is going to be flooded with right-wing content. I mean, that's what's happening. And
Because the right wing is about a decade ahead on funding their gigantic worldview megaphone, and it could not be more obvious.
right, right. And it's on every platform, right? Like it's not just like, yeah, we continue to invest in legacy media, cable news, and paid media, like, and then didn't make any investments here, and now we're behind. So let me transition us then to, okay, so the solution is clearly people need to make different investments. Let's just unpack that a little bit. Like, what can people do now? Like, if people are listening to this and they're like, we get it, we're terrible, we're trash, we want to be better, we swear. What does it look like? Like, how can we help people do this?
Yeah, I mean, if the goals are winning more and like clawing back the online territory that we have ceded to the right, there are a bunch of things that we can do. I think one very clear thing is encouraging this culture of experimentation on our side. And there are a few different reasons why that might not be happening, but the second and probably most like clear cut thing we can all be doing, or people with decision making power on campaigns can be doing, is making sure that as we approach 2026, that budget line is in there for the midterms, the budget line for organic social media. And I want to be so honest and clear about this. This can cost a ton of money. It's not, you're really lucky if you like hire someone in-house for under $10,000 a month who happens to be amazing at social media. That's not what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, Rachel, you've probably seen more of these budgets than I have, but like really successful, great organic social costs tens of thousands of dollars a month. And I think that sticker shock is holding people back because they can't imagine getting the return on that investment, because it's not that certain metrics aren't as certain as when you are buying impressions with a very narrow targeted audience, or when you're hiring someone for your email fundraising retainer who has like fundraising goals. Obviously, it's scary because you don't have those certain guarantees, but the alternative is irrelevance and more fascism. See, like,
Yeah.
it's pretty high risk to not try to get into organic social.
Right, when you put it that way. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's a couple different rule of thumbs, and I've been trying to, I mean, I think we're all trying to figure out how to take what seems very obvious and apparent to those of us who spend time on the internet and use the language of people who don't, frankly, spend that much time on the internet. Wait, quick aside, I meant to say this earlier. When you're talking about like pink collar jobs and, it's a lot of younger people who are closer to the internet. I also just like, can I just quickly say, I think we are well past the point where it is no longer uh, professional, let alone cute, for people in positions of leadership to brag about how little they use the internet, which is something I am still finding a lot.
Hmm.
Like it would be like saying, it's like the equivalent to me of saying like, yeah, I can't read. Like, okay.
As someone who can barely read, my metaphor is more like it would be like running a political campaign and being like, I don't really watch the news.
Yes.
I don't
Yes.
really keep up.
Yes. That's what it feels like. It's like saying like, okay, that may be the case, but that's a real challenge that we need to address. And like, this is, I don't know, it just feels so tone deaf to sort of say, I don't know about that whole internet thing. And like, and if that is the case, there are really great leaders who don't, I'm not saying all leaders have to like spend 10 hours a day on TikTok. I'm not saying that. But recognize that it's important, and it's an important part of shaping a sound strategy. And if you don't personally bring that perspective to the table, make sure your leadership team does, right? It is no longer appropriate to act like the internet doesn't matter and to not staff it or resources. Anyway, okay. So, in terms of budgeting, the sort of golden rule of thumb, I mean, different people have different rules of thumb, but, you know, when you look at a campaign budget, you want to make sure that certainly a majority of the overall budget is going into direct voter communication. And, you know, some campaigns aim for like 70% or more of dollars that the campaign is raising need to go into directly reaching voters. And different campaigns attribute direct voter communication in different ways. It's often mostly paid media, but, you know, there's organizing teams who are knocking on doors and doing voter communication through phone calls and that sort of thing. And so you want to try and make sure that the majority of your resources are steered that way. And I think if we think about it in that way, even if we're just taking 10 or 20% of what would have been our paid media budget before and pulling it forward, and even if that means lowering the overall paid media budget by 10 or 20%, I would rather take that money 8 months out and invest it, even if it is tens of thousands of dollars a month. I would rather see that invested earlier, to your point, to build. And those are impressions, and those are impressions that are reaching voters, right? At different scale with
And
less
building your
control.
name recognition. I mean, if you look at the New York City mayoral race, it was like you rewind 8 months from the primary and people are like, yeah, I like Zoran, but he doesn't have a chance because Cuomo's got all the name recognition. And it's like, you want to know how you get your name recognized? You put it in front of people's eyeballs 10 times a day for the next 8 months.
Right.
And that's what he did. And
Right.
he won in a landslide on
Right.
election night.
And he didn't do that by running paid media for 8 months. He did it by investing in organic social media. Okay, so let's talk about from a budgeting perspective. And I don't know every line item of the disclosure, but I have done some poking around on how they spent their money in the primary. And they were spending 8 to 10K a month on organic social video production. Just, and again, I don't know the ins and outs of what that got them, or, you know, how many hours or how many video assets that went into. I also have to imagine that there were costs for video shoots or filming days on top of that. I have to imagine that that's not counting dedicated staff who are running the social accounts and consultants who are building, you know, digital engagement workflows with ManyChat. Like there's a whole array of different types of investments across the program that I have to imagine totaled easily like 50 to 60K a month across headcount, consultants, and raw video production.
I can't speak to like what was spent. I don't have that kind of insight, but like this is public information, right? Like anybody can look up how much any campaign spent on like vendors
Right.
and the staff who manages stuff. And yeah, if you look at disclosures from like the big races, you're gonna see tens of thousands of dollars getting spent on if they're doing it right on things related to organic social media. Um, and I mean, what are clients coming to you and asking for organic social to cost? When you like are in a discovery call and they're like, we are planning a big budget for organic social. It's
I
what?
wish people were coming and saying, "We're planning a big budget for organic social." I'd be like, "Great, I'm happy to help you
Or what do
spend
they
it."
think is reasonable?
So what is most often happening is, and I don't say this facetiously at all. I actually really appreciate the people who are even trying to start this conversation, but most people are coming and saying, "I don't know how to do this. Like, I know it's important, but I don't have a line item in my budget. I don't know anybody. I don't know of an email listserv that I can just ping and get 10 resumes." Like, And so honestly, like my answer to this, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is like how as a party, we have an infrastructure problem, so we need to be building infrastructure. But we need to train and train social media managers on campaigns, and we need to be building a pipeline for that. We need resume banks and training programs and networking groups. And anyway, that's a
Can
whole.
I actually I have to piggyback off of
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
I do think that there's legitimately, like, a skills problem where we really do need
totally,
to train more people in, like, what good organic social is in politics.
totally.
And, uh, I have noticed this in a few different, like, places, like, either friends are working on a campaign or just, working in politics. I have noticed that people will often completely skip over resumes of people who do not have political experience, which is a
Yes,
huge mistake because
yes,
people who come from the corporate world, I mean, Zoran's like the agency that did a lot of his video content, Melted Solids, they come from like traditional advertising world, and they're like, what if we applied these tactics to politics? And guess what, that worked really well.
yep, yep,
And like I think especially with organic social, it is much harder to train the skill set of like being on really extremely online, understanding organic social and like having a grip on the algorithms and like the current app interfaces, literally what you can do on these platforms. It's way harder to train that than to train like what's going on your campaign, than to
yes.
train like political language. And I think also people from like the small business or corporate side or creator side who want to get into politics, like, are often going to bring really important skills from that world into politics. Like, there just simply isn't a ton of really great like organic social media going on in politics. Obviously, there are some names we all kind of like know who's doing it right, and there's just not a ton of inspiration to take, but there's inspiration everywhere to take from the corporate side, small business side, creator side. And that's like every time I see an interesting tool or tactic that a creator is using, small business is using, that a brand is using, I'm like, how can we use this to build power? And I think that just completely putting to the side any resumes of people who've never worked on a campaign before, we are undercutting ourselves. We are sabotaging ourselves so bad doing that.
Yeah, so I think that's incredibly real, and while I wish there were a bigger structural vehicle for gathering up all those resumes and giving them a little bit of political training before we sent them out, to answer your question about, like, what am I telling people, like, this is actually it. Like, this is what I'm telling most people is, like, "Okay, you wanna be better online. Where do you start?" Like, step 1, is it someone's job on your team? I usually start there, like, and if you don't have a dedicated social media manager, budget for one, right? And there's interesting things to explore with, is it a hybrid social and comms person? Is it a hybrid social media manager and body person? Is it like there's a lot of different ways if you're I'm talking about like for down ballot races, like state or local races where you're really everybody is going to have to wear multiple hats. Like but anchoring that like this is a job and it's a priority and so it needs to be somebody's
And
job.
maybe the other job is the one tacked on to the end of the social media position. Like,
Exactly.
they're a social media manager and they're gonna staff you everywhere you go. Like,
Exactly,
ideally,
exactly,
ideally someone can focus on organic social, but it's like, prioritize the social skill set. They can learn the other
exactly.
stuff.
And that's so we start with that, that's, like, my first piece of advice, and then in terms of hiring, they immediately go, "Well, I don't know anybody who does that." And I'm like, "Well, it's easy to get resumes." I literally, like, posted once on LinkedIn and had over 100 resumes in 2 days. And I actively tell people what you're saying, Gabby, which is, like, you're gonna hire someone who's never worked a campaign, and you're gonna have to get comfortable with it, and they're gonna know how to use CapCut, and that's more important than them knowing all the ins and outs of what issue groups stand where and the local politics of what alderman's beefing with who or whatever. So getting people to open their brains to like dedicating staff capacity to this, then hiring the right skills into that role, and then making a plan for how to help train them on the new skills that they need. And often this is like a long-standing beef, but I have yet to find a campaign that doesn't have somebody doing comms. And by comms, they mean writing press releases and helping with talking points and media prep and stuff like that. So like, I'm not worried about deploying somebody without much campaign experience, as long as there's other people on the team who can help be that second set of eyes, who can help maybe massage some of the messaging or the copy or help steer. And a good like any good staffer will learn over time. Like, you can learn tone of voice, you can learn the politics, you can learn the messaging. You can't learn as easily how to be a native on the platform, or how to use editing tools, or how to understand the algorithm. So
Takes a lot longer.
yeah, so A, hire someone, B, hire for those skills, and then C, the third plank, and this is the piece that I think people don't. This is slower to adopt, but video production is time and labor intensive. Creative work is time and labor intensive, and there's no shortcuts. There's no AI slopping your way into banger videos. There's just not. You have to give people time, space, and let them cook. You just have to. That's how it works.
And on that note, think of how politicians think of it as a given. They have to schedule call time. They put aside time to sit and make phone calls.
Yep.
To have great content, you have to put aside time to film.
Yeah.
You have to schedule it, and you have to be regular about it. You have to treat it like a religion. Or else you're not going to have the content to churn out to reach the people, to have your message be repeated again and again and again. Ideally, you become a meme and there's like a huge media firestorm, but at least you're going to reach a bunch of people with your message that's repeatable, that they can tell their friends about, that they can send to DMs, or however it is that your message is spreading. Like, you have to put the time in yourself as the candidate, and you have to hire the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's easy to feel a little insane when we have these conversations, because it feels like people treat this like this giant unsolvable mystery, and the answers feel almost like so basic that I feel insane even saying them. Like no one would ever be like, oh, man, I need to knock on 100,000 doors. How am I ever going to, what do I do? How do I do it? Like, people like know instinctively, like, well, you hire someone, you recruit volunteers, you cut lists, you do, and it's going to take this amount of time. We have like formulas for how to predict, like, we know all of this. And the same thing exists in organic social media. The problem is, I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's not that we don't know how to do this. The problem is just that we aren't doing it.
Absolutely.
We're not listening to the people who are telling us what to do. And we're not enacting the very basic things. I still am trying to figure out, I don't know if you have you've been very successful at getting people to try new things. What is your advice? Like, the wall I keep running into is, because it's new, it feels risky. And people don't want to do something that feels risky. Do you have any tips on de-risking these things for people?
Yeah. I mean, I have a few, but the top one is, like, when you hire people who are more senior, you can put more trust in their competence, like, just because they have done this before. But I think the main thing that is going to increase a level of psychological safety that will, like, allow people to be more comfortable with experimentation is implementing a sign-off process that the candidate is bought in on, that like leadership is bought in on, and making sure that like multiple sets of eyes are seeing everything before they go out, but that you're not killing your content by like death by 1,000 paper cuts and making it so hard to get something out the door that you're late to everything, that you are not posting in a timely way. Like, having a sign off process that is both long enough to make people feel comfortable like experimenting with content, and short enough to make sure that creativity isn't just killed
Yep.
on its way out the door. I think striking that balance is like super, super key. But also just emphasizing, like, I think doing like experiments that are more cost effective, that are just cheaper, is
Mm.
one really helpful way to help people flex this muscle. So, like, when I've pitched ManyChat to people, I emphasize that like it's pretty cheap. Like they start at $15 a month, and it scales up as you get more people. But it's like if you're getting that many more people, that it's getting that much more expensive. Like that's not a problem. Like
Yeah.
you those people, like you're making a lot of contact with people. But I think that has been one really huge selling point, is just that like this is not like yeah, this might feel like it's shiny object syndrome where you just like want to try the new thing, but like when the object is $15, I'm like very cool with that. That seems fine to me.
I wish we could make video for $15 a month, and I think people would do a lot
I
more of
mean,
it.
that's basically what people want.
That's what they wanna pay. That's what they wanna pay. Oh, man. Okay, that's funny. Okay, any other closing thoughts, any ground we didn't cover here on solutions? So it's like, it's putting the right people in place, putting the right process and structure to let them cook, giving them budget to make things and try things and do things. What else? Anything else?
I guess just like lowering initial investment so that like people can try things in a way that isn't like, okay, we need to do a creator program, so we need $200,000 right now for the first time trying this for the
Right.
very first time. It's like you can try smaller versions that are less scary to do. And like have your numbers afterwards, prove that it's worth it. And just like keep great data. So I mean your organic social should be data informed, but not necessarily data driven, because it is part science and it's part art, and it's about like figuring out what's going on right now and what could work right now for you specifically.
It's funny because this is another thing we haven't touched on, but that drives me crazy about the ROI trap that often kills most investments in organic social. Like, "Oh, well, we're just spending money and, like, throwing it into a bottle and tossing it into the ocean and hoping that somebody sees it," when actually, like, we have so much data from organic social. It's just not the kinds of data that a lot of people in democratic politics are used to engaging with, and, we're very obsessed, and this has been a theme on previous episodes on this podcast, but we're very obsessed with the voter file, and if it doesn't perfectly map back one to one to individual voter records, it's, like, deemed useless a lot of times, and I think this is one of the biggest challenges, despite the fact that we are drowning in data from social media platforms. We can give you, reach, engagement, like likes, shares. We know how many people are sending it in their group DMs. Like we know lots and lots and lots of data points. But it's like somehow deemed useless and there's no real data about social. And I that's always been a paradox that drives me crazy because digital practitioners are some of the most data competent people. It's just we speak a different data language than a lot of Democrats in who do data. And I've never understood why like data firms aren't doing more with social media, like social listening, social media analytics. Anyway, this is a quick total other side. You just bring this out to me, Gabby. Like okay. We've covered a lot of ground. I think it's time to take us to the Hot Takes hotline.
Give us a call at the Hot Takes hotline.
I want to tee up our little voicemail here. We have our listeners call in and share their hot takes with us. And if you listening at home have a hot take, you're always welcome to hit the hotline. We actually run a real hotline. It's at 1-844-4-HOT-TAKES. Yeah, Gabby, go send it around to the group chat. Have people call in.
All right.
people leave us their voicemails with their thoughts, their hot takes, their impressions, their things that we could be doing better, their questions. We've got one lined up for you. So let's go ahead and hear what our caller has to say.
Hey, my hot take is that every time the Democratic Party really has a chance to engage with the youth and have them come out and vote and get excited about stuff, they institutionally, I feel like they kind of turn their backs on it. They're always talking about how we need the youth, how do we get people to vote? Then you look at places like New York City's Democratic primary, all Democratic institutions did not embrace Zohran Mamdani. Thank God he came out and won. And he was supported by, I don't know, double-digit poll support by the youth over Cuomo. So yeah, that's my hot take. If you want the youth to vote, get them excited. Put candidates they like in front of them. Thanks.
I can't imagine why we chose that one for you, Gabbi. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I actually have an intense thought about this, which is that I've been engaged in so many conversations lately about what the tech issue is, where the lack of investment is, why can't we get organic social right? And it's actually this issue is a lot deeper. Yes to all of that. And it starts with the platform, the party, the candidates we're choosing. Corporate Democrats don't want to upset their corporate donors, and so therefore they have not stood behind a lot of policies that their base really cares about and gets fired up about in a long time. And so yeah, I mean, when we talk about authenticity and in politics, you literally can't throw a rock without hitting someone talking about the importance of authenticity. It's we're not showing up as authentic on organic social or anywhere, not because they're bad in front of a camera, but because they're potentially pretty bad people, a lot of them, and dishonest and are not standing up for what is right and what's best for their constituents. And that doesn't get anybody excited. You can fake it, sure, but if you want authenticity, sometimes that does start with candidates that actually believe what they're talking about, that actually believe what they say. I think that's what a lot of people saw in Zohran, and we're seeing some candidates who are doing this, but for the most part, the Democratic establishment, I won't even call out the Dems necessarily, the Republicans too. You can't believe what establishment politicians are saying, and they're going to come off as inauthentic because they flip-flop all the time, and it just sounds like they're bought and paid for by the people who donate to their campaigns, who are not the people but corporations.
Yeah, you're right that we have, you can talk about messengers, and then distribution. And I think we have big problems in each area, and there seems to be a love of obsession, a long-standing old pastime of dissecting the message with kind of not enough attention spent on the messengers. And my axe to grind is almost no attention spent on the distribution. And all of those things have to work together. And I think, there are a lot of mainstream Democrats who maybe are trying to fight for the right thing. But if a tree falls in the woods, it doesn't if you're not telling that story well and distributing it where people will actually consume it, then it doesn't matter. And then I do think that this has allowed many people to kind of skate by under the radar who aren't actually actively working hard on the things that their constituents need them working hard on. Status quo is powerful, right? Inertia is a principle in physics, right? It's very hard to take something that is stable and powerful and change it. So it's always going to be hard. It's not possible if you aren't even trying to do it in the right places, in the right ways.
I mean,
So
and like what you just said, we just have this real tendency to way over message test everything, but not pay. We're like, after we lost in 2024, is like, what did we get wrong about the narrative? And it's like, guys, like, it's not necessarily the narrative that's the problem here. Like, we don't need to make a narrative shift alone. We need
right.
to change a lot more than that. And I also just want to like talk about one thing. I don't know if people know Anat Shankar Osaria. Like, she's very, very talented messaging strategist, pollster. And she tells this story about Miracle Whip. And that at least when she like wrote her book, back when she wrote her book, Miracle Whip was spending 95% of all of their advertising dollars on advertising to people who are already their customers. And so, like, what that means is that they were advertising to the people who were brand evangelists, knowing that they were going to spread the good word, that they were going to be like, become more and more and more excited about Miracle Whip and tell their friends and get the word out. And she also says, she also talks about how, like, preaching to the choir is a really necessary thing, because when you preach to the choir then sings to the congregation. Like, you need that repeatable, awesome messaging to really resonate with your base, like Zohran's did, so that your base is so excited that they can't stop talking about you. And then that's how you get like an organic buzz going. That's how you get like an organic new media firestorm going, and you get creators talking about you, making content with you or with their friends or whatever. Like, we've got to be saying better things, meaning them, and like preaching to the choir and firing up our base while also reaching new people.
Yeah, and Knott's full of a lot of gems. Like, she's legendary for folks who I think do what we do. I also think a lot about I don't know if this is her phrasing, but this is my like what's in my head, and I think it's sourced to her. Um about like, if people want to buy Coke, don't sell them Diet Coke. Like, they don't want to buy like the lighter version of what they actually want. They want, you know, we have to sell what's good about us, and not like a weaker version of what the Republicans are selling.
Right.
I think that's a trap we fall into quite a bit too. And then the other piece about like the singing to the choir stuff, like, I also think like people just want to people want to be with winners, and they want to have a good time. Like, throw a good party and people will come. Like, if you're not having fun, and if your base isn't having fun, and if there's not like something when your base is excited, it attracts people. Like, if there's a good party, people are like, oh, I want to see what they've got going on. And I actually think this is what MAGA has done pretty well tactically. I mean, it's a cult, but they've made it a cult that other people want to join.
Sure.
I knew this would be a fun conversation. I'm sure we could talk, and will continue to talk much more about all of these things. And really, honestly, though, like, I'm so glad we got connected. It's so good to meet people who are really doing this and offering these solutions. Like, it's a good reminder. We're out here. People are out here who do have these skills and who can help lead our party forward if we would just have the good sense to listen. So for folks at home who want to follow Gabbi, her website is zutrau.nyc. You can also follow Gabbi and Edna at Edna the Runt on social media. That's the handle. Follow across platforms. It's a great follow. 10 out of 10 recommend. But the best place to reach her and keep up with her work is by following her on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Handle is @extremelyonlinefriend. And if you want to follow along for more of these kinds of conversations, we are at Novel Messaging on YouTube and novelmessaging.substack.com, where you can listen to this and all of our other episodes. And don't forget, if you have a hot take, if this conversation brought something up for you, let us know. Call us at the hotline 844-4-HOT-TAKES, and we want to hear from you. So Thanks, Gabbi, for being here. Thanks so much for doing this. And thanks, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you next time with more novel ideas.